Well, the US Supreme Court has rejected an attempt by President Donald Trump and the state of Texas to overturn results in the presidential election. The suit challenged President-elect Joe Biden's victories in Michigan, Georgia, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. But justices ruled that Texas didn't have the right to challenge how other states run their elections. The defeat marks a huge setback for Donald Trump in his bid to seize electoral victory from Biden. For more, let's go to Orlando and speak to Professor Michael T. Morley, an election and constitutional law expert from Florida State University. Professor, welcome. It seemed to be widely expected that this challenge by Texas would fail, which turned out to be correct. Why did the Supreme Court dismiss it?
The Supreme Court held that Texas lacked standing to challenge the results of the other states' elections. A presidential election in the United States, we often think of it as a single nationwide unitary event, when in reality it's conducted as a series of 51 separate elections within each of the 50 states, as well as the District of Columbia. And so the Supreme Court held that it lacked jurisdiction over Texas's challenge because it said the state of Texas didn't have a legal interest in how other states went about conducting their presidential election and whether there were violations of other states' laws or even violations of the U.S. Constitution in those other states. So it refused to hear the case due to Texas's lack of standing to pursue the types of legal issues that it had sought to raise.
I'd like to get your opinion on the implications of this challenge. It did fail, but after all, 18 states and more than 100 Republicans in Congress endorsed discarding the results of the election. What does this mean?
Well, I think that there's a few different ways you can look at that. On the one hand, I think it shows certainly widespread institutional support within the Republican Party for President Trump. The fact that he was able to get that wide of a backing for Texas's lawsuit. On the other hand, I think it shows that at least among some segment of the population, concern about the results of the election, potential just skepticism about the electoral process as a whole. Obviously, the election was conducted in the wake of COVID-19. There had been numerous changes as a result of court orders and emergency regulations and other types of emergency orders that had been passed in order to allow the election to be conducted in the wake of a global pandemic. By and large, I think election officials across the nation performed admirably. It was remarkable that they were able to pull off the election with so few unexpected bumps. But I think that just the sheer extent of the changes, at least among some portion of the population, right, led to skepticism. The enhanced use of the mails, obviously, right, President Trump throughout the campaign had called into question heavy emphasis on mailing voting. And so I think that overall, we saw those factors coalesce in the support on the Republican end that Texas wound up getting before the court.
On Monday, the Electoral College meets to formally elect Joe Biden as US president. We also know lawsuits brought by Trump and his allies have failed repeatedly across the country. Is this the end of the legal road for Donald Trump?
Well, one of the things that made the Texas suit so unique, and again, the court held it didn't even have jurisdiction. A lot of commentators had pointed out the numerous procedural and jurisdictional hurdles that it faced. But one of the unique aspects of the Texas suit is that it essentially sought to bring the entire election before the Supreme Court, that it identified 4 different states where Texas claimed it had statutory and constitutional problems and invited the court to handle the issue in one fell swoop. There are still cases pending in the lower courts. As a matter of fact, the Wisconsin Supreme Court has just agreed to hear an appeal brought by the Trump campaign tomorrow. There are other cases where the Trump campaign has lost in the lower courts where it can still ask the Supreme Court itself to hear those cases. So over the upcoming days and potentially even weeks, I expect to see continued litigation. I think it's extraordinarily unlikely that any of those lawsuits will succeed. But the short answer is no. This case, while it presented one unified package that would have allowed the court to consider all of the objections being raised, right, at least in most of the states across the board, the court's rejection of this case doesn't shut the door on all of these other cases that remain pending in the lower courts.
OK, it's been good to talk to you. Professor Michael T. Morley from Florida State University, thank you very much.
Thank you.